Welcome to the Ye Old Desert Scrounger Power Hour podcast. We invite you to get comfortable, kick off the shoes, and stay a while. Okay, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Ye Old Desert Scrounger Power Hour podcast. This week, our special guest is a dear friend of mine. His name is Wyatt McKenzie. Welcome to the podcast, Wyatt McKenzie.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored and blessed to be here.
Well, it's going to be a good time had by all, I believe. Now, you and I, Wyatt, we go way back to the days of the music scene in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, I want to say that the very first Mother McKenzie show back in 2007 was at the Aristocrat, which was a bar where you worked, and you were there. And I think at the time I was either playing solo or I had a 3-piece band at the time. So you're like, you and I go way back. Yeah.
How old were you then? Because I remember us kind of smuggling you in.
Yeah, I was like 20. I don't even think I was 21 yet.
Okay.
I know I wasn't 21 yet.
I thought you were 7.
I could have been.
A little older than that. Yeah, that was an incredible show. Of course, we've played some shows together since then. It's good to have you on here. Let's take this opportunity to listen to a track from Dark Planets of Dead Dreams. The track is called Organic Asteroid.
Flying in eternal black vacuum toward its goal. Dying something long forgotten in the flames we stole. Crying, tears fall down but vanish in a black hole. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Flying like a speeding rocket toward its spinning target. Dying thanks to our perfect code, watch billions vanish. Crying death holds a scythe clad in robes of soft velvet. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Thunder, wonder, raining, draining, tears drip, fears grip, gear shift, sears trip, hoping, surrendering, running, remembering, screaming, dreaming, awaken, forsaken. eternal black vacuum toward its goal. Dying something long forgotten in the flames we stole. Crying, tears fall down but vanish in a black hole. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic asteroid. Organic
Tell me about your beginnings.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been making music since I was very, very small. I was born in Orlando, Florida. I lived there till I was about 7. My aunt and my grandma were both musicians. My aunt is a visual artist, and she's got some psychic, clairvoyant sensitivities that are pretty powerful. Like, she will call me out of nowhere when I'm having a crisis, and she'll be like, "What's going on?" And I'll be like, "How did you know?" You know. So there's some, and we're gonna get into talks of magic and clairvoyance and stuff later, but she's a part of my family that really roped me into that, and she was my father's sister, and my father was kind of the opposite. Very skeptical, but also very Christian, very right wing. Anyways, my aunt was a big influence on me, as well as my grandmother. My grandmother had an organ, and my aunt played guitar, and she had an auto harp. And I just begged my parents to buy me a guitar, and it wasn't until we moved to Irmo, South Carolina, a few years later, that I started taking lessons. But when I got to Las Vegas when I was 10, I started taking like really intense lessons, and I found an awesome guitar teacher who we would just jam, and he would teach me like all about blues scales and pentatonic scales and stuff like that. And then I learned the bass, and I learned piano and mandolin, and basically learned how to play a little bit of everything. Taught myself a lot. I was very, very schooled when it came to guitar, but I taught myself a lot of other instruments. And eventually I got into a school called the Las Vegas Academy, which was kind of a music and performing arts and visual arts school. And it was there that I started. I would make albums in my room on my 12-track little digital recorder, and I would pass them out to friends and stuff like that. And some people would like throw them away. Some people would listen and be like, "Hey, there's something there," And I started a band there called the Invisible Orchestra, and we recruited like a cellist and like a sax player, and we none of us were very tight, but like that was my introduction to the music scene. And so I was playing shows from like 16 on, and but it really wasn't until I think I met Chris Leland that I really got connected with like our scene, because I would go to Chris Leland, our mutual friend, who's in a band called Dreaming of Lions. um, he would hold these amazing house shows that were very intimate, and I always felt like they were very spiritual. You know, people would sing along and stuff like that, and people would drink and share beers and sing along to these songs. And I went first, you know, and nobody really knew me. And then I kept seeing Chris Leland out everywhere. And like everywhere I would go, you know, I'd go to Barnes and Noble, he was there. I would go to a bar, he'd be there. I would go to Starbucks and he'd be there. And it was just like, it was a sign that I should go and talk to this guy. So I went up to him and I was like, hey, you know, I've been to your house shows. I've seen your band. I like your band a lot. I make folk music. And he goes, oh, well, you know, there's a show coming up this weekend. Bring me a demo. And not a lot of people in town make folk music. So I brought him a demo. And I guess he really liked it. So he set up that first show that I played at your bar. And that was kind of where it all got started.
Very nice. Yeah, his house shows at the Cloud Hidden House
Yeah.
are now the stuff of legend.
Yeah.
I miss those shows quite a bit.
Me too.
So you're working on a new album.
Yes. Well, Mother McKenzie is disbanded. That moniker is disbanded for personal reasons. It just it represents a time and a place for me that's over. So now I'm on to different projects. I've got two different musical projects that I'm working on. One is called The Western Lands, which is a project that I'm doing with my friend Andrew Yegazarian, who lives in Portland. And the project that we're going to be discussing is a project called Dark Planets of Dead Dreams. That is a collaboration of kind of a hero of mine, Thomas Carlson, who is a writer of lyrics for famous metal bands like Therion and Shadow Seeds. And he has a PhD in comparative religion, I believe, from the University of Stockholm. And he writes books, and he runs an organization called Dragon Rouge that he started when he was 17 in 1989. And I'm actually a member of Dragon Rouge. I'm kind of a social member. I haven't exactly climbed up the ranks of initiation. I kind of do my own thing when it comes to magic. But I'm a social member, and I think an honorary member of Dragon Rouge. And Thomas, I think, likes to have me, and he likes to brag that I'm a member. So we're good friends. We've been pen pals for a while. And I originally met Thomas through Facebook just because I added him because I was a fan. He wrote a book that I used to read and reference all the time for my own magical practice, which is called the Kabbalah. It's called Kabbalah, Cliff-Oath, and Goetic Magic. And that was kind of his foundational book that made him famous in the occult world. And it's, you know, he talks about the Cliff-Oath, which is the inverse side of the Tree of Life. And in magic and in Jewish mysticism, the Tree of Life is basically a map of both human and universal consciousness that is comprised of these spheres called the Sephiroth and their interlinking paths. If you look at the day side of the Tree of Life, which most magical orders like the Golden Dawn or Astra Argentum are based off of, most of the spheres are linked to planets and angels. You know, like for instance, Tiferet, the solar sphere, is linked to the Archangel Michael, and Hod, which is the Mercury sphere, is linked to the Archangel Raphael, and Yesod, the lunar sphere, is linked to Gabriel, etc., etc. But the inverse side of the Tree of Life is actually, I guess they say that's where you fall if there's a certain level of the Tree of Life above Tiferet, which is kind of an abyss, and you're supposed to confront very, very intense parts of yourself, and you're supposed to confront a demon named Coronzone, who's a shapeshifter, and he's supposed to confuse you and trick you into falling into the abyss. And if you fall into the abyss, you go into the inverse side of the tree of life, which is called the tree of death. And the tree of death is composed of spheres that are the inverse or excessive, dark, opposite sort of spheres of the day side of the tree. So, for instance, the lunar sphere of Yesod on the day side of the tree is ruled by the Archangel Gabriel. On the night side, it is called Gamaliel, and it is ruled by Lilith, the demon. And Hod, the Mercury sphere, which on the day side is ruled by the Archangel Raphael, on the night side is ruled by Samael, who's basically a kind of a form of the angel of death. He's a consort of Lilith. He's a very, very powerful demon who's associated with death and bringing dead souls to the other side. And his name, I believe in Hebrew, translates to poison of God. So anyways, blah, 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 blah. Thomas Carlson's order, Dragon Rouge, instead of being built and mapped around the Tree of Life, is mapped around the Tree of Death. Not because, you're supposed to go and, basically like indulge in all of these excessive and extreme parts of yourself. It's more so that you're supposed to sort of transcend these excessive parts of yourself. There's something transcendental about going through the spheres and the paths on the tree of death, and it takes a very strong person. You have to be very, very strong to commit to that kind of working. It's very intense, but you're basically, I think it's a way of battling one's own demons. And in Dragon Rouge, they worship an entity called the Red Dragon, who they tie it to many, many other cultures, through basically through just going and looking at comparative religion in Eastern tantric religion and Eastern yogic philosophy. The concept of the Kundalini, the twin serpents that are kind of coiled through the spine as you raise your consciousness, beginning in the Muladhara root chakra and rising all the way up. The Kundalini is a manifestation of the Red Dragon. The Red Dragon is also Satan. The Red Dragon is the Red Dragon of the Apocalypse from the Book of Revelations. They also look at like Chinese philosophical representations of the Red Dragon. I believe they look at like Norse mythology and different dragons that are written up in Norse mythology, and also there is the concept of the Chaos Kampf, I believe, which is that basically in every religion and every myth from the beginning of time, there is the hero who fights the dragon. It's a very, very important part of every religion. Like, for instance, I believe it was Moses who fought Leviathan, and that is mirrored in countless other religions. There's always somebody fighting a dragon, and that dragon is represented in Thelemic philosophy, Crowleyan philosophy, as the beast, the great beast, which is basically your subconscious self, which is just completely chaotic and disorganized, and you have to find a way to defeat it. And basically that's a form of discipline, self-discipline. So yeah, that's my way of, I guess, my best way of explaining Thomas and what he does. So anyways, he and I became good friends. I read his book. I was obsessed with his book. I've read more of his books since then, and they're all great. he and I became good friends and pen pals, and I interviewed him for a podcast, a failed podcast I was working on, and I had all these great clips of him saying these amazing things, and I love his voice and his Swedish accent. You know, he's from Stockholm. So I used a bunch of these clips on an album that I made, Red Dragon, with Mother McKenzie a few years ago, I think in 2019. And he loved it. And that made us a lot closer. And we agreed that we were going to work on a project that was going to be a deeper collaboration. So he started sending me lyrics. And it's taken us about 3 years to work on this project. And I didn't really realize it until he's, you know, was finished with all the lyrics, but I feel like the lyrics definitely fit into a really powerful theme. And there's definitely something there about like his soul and his struggle to connect with God and sort of like finding it easier and more enlightening to connect with the darker side. And he also, like, there's a beautiful track on there called Holding Holiness, where he talks about the first time that he held his son in his hands. And that track is also related to my daughter. My daughter just turned 2. So it was good getting to sing that track because it's sort of both, you know, I feel like it's both about his son and my daughter. And it's a really good track.
How do you feel like starting a family? Because I know you're married now with a young daughter. How do you feel like that has changed your relationship to your own music?
Oh, it's been very inspirational to me. Having a daughter really changed my life. It came at the perfect time. Both of my parents died. My dad died in 2016. He had struggled with various heart problems his whole entire life. He had a exposure to uranium leakage in a creek out here when he was very young, and so it just caused him constant, you know, he was always having issues with heart problems, cancers. You know, it would be one cancer and then it would be another, and then liver problems, and then heart problems, and then kidney problems. And from the time that I was 12 on, it was always like we were going to doctors, and doctors were going to say, you know, we're going to do this really intense and rare surgery, and there's going to be medical students there, and there's going to be a such and such % chance that he's going to be living. So that kind of messed with me growing up, and kind of added to a lot of my depression and stuff like that. My mom was so busy kind of working and taking care of the house and taking care of my dad that when I was 12, I was kind of like often left to my own devices, and kind of became kind of a bad kid. And but yeah, my father passed in 2016. My mom died of leukemia right at the beginning of 2020 when COVID was going on. During that time, I was living in Las Vegas. I was homeless. I had stayed on my brother's couch for a while, but I had actually lived there with a former girlfriend, and we had caused some trouble. So once the apartment complex had seen that I was back living there, they basically did everything in their power to kick me out of there. So I was homeless and just kind of like I was around some really bad people, and I was doing in pepper sprays, and just was crashing in on this really rough like Seagull Suites motel room that was infested with bed bugs, and just around some really awful people. And all this while my mom was dying, I had no way to get to her because I was broke, and just like it was a really rough time, probably the roughest time of my entire life. And then my brother finally, you know, he said he was gonna pack up everything and go out there, and that I could hop in the car with him. So I hopped in the car with him, and my mom passed away while we were driving over here. Our plan was to take care of her, but she died before we could get to her. So we moved out here. She left me a little bit of money, and I promised myself I wasn't going to spend that money on drugs. So I just like, I got my license back, and I got a job working at a grocery store at first, and just like started collecting instruments, you know, mostly like really cool folk instruments like hammered dulcimer, Gaelic harp, bowed psaltery, banjos, mandolins, guitars, dobros, all kinds of cool stuff. Connected with a really cool music store out here called Music Folk, and I got a harmonium. So whenever I basically had the craving to spend money on drugs, I would just kind of substituted buying instruments, and then I was able to put 4 years of um, of clean time. Now it's been 4 years since I've used the heroin or the meth that was really beating me up back then. Um, where were we at? You were talking about my daughter. So so I've been clean for about 2 years, and I started talking to my wife, Alex, who wasn't my wife at the time, but she was still living in Las Vegas, and she was actually very determined to be clean too. She's also a recovering addict, and we just really fell in love over the phone. And she would fly out here and visit me. I would fly out there and visit her, and she ended up moving out here. And when we found out that she was pregnant, it just felt like perfect because I'd lost both my parents, and it was just like, I think I was 33 when I found out. So I just felt like the perfect time. And so I said, yes, we're going to have this kid. And we found out it was a girl. And I had been having trouble finding inspiration, I guess, since I quit meth, because I used to really depend on that to inspire me both musically and magically. And I would basically just do meth and sort of live in these trap houses, and I would read occult books all the time and practice occult rituals. And I had built this very cohesive sort of uh, um, like ritualized life where I would wake up and do meth and do rituals all day, but it was very delusional because meth was involved. So quitting it for a while, like, it was hard to get back into magic. It was hard to get back into music. Having a daughter and getting married really, really kind of inspired me again. I remember I would bring my guitar in uh, back when my daughter was in the NICU for a small amount of time. She had some jaundice and some minor health issues. So I would bring my guitar in and play for her, and I started writing songs for her, and it was all started coming back. And I made Motherhood, which was the last Mother McKenzie album, which I'm really proud of. And it talks a lot about my mother, and it talks about spirituality and magic a lot. And it talks about my daughter and my wife. And I'm really proud of that. It's probably one of my favorite albums I've made. And so now I feel like when it comes to magic or when it comes to music, it comes very naturally. Like I have this light in my life again, and being a father and being there for my daughter has really helped me heal a lot from a lot of the darkness that was in my life before. And she's been a great light and source of inspiration for me. And just kind of protecting her and being a good dad is sort of like, feels like I'm giving back, for some of the time when I was just kind of a very selfish and reckless person. So
Can you tell me a little bit about the recording process of this album, the way you and Thomas handled it, and also about the instrumentation on the album?
yeah, well, Thomas sends me lyrics, and it's a great privilege that he's done that, because he has written lyrics for some of the most popular and well respected and renowned metal bands in Sweden. And this is a different project for him. He's never worked on anything that is kind of like folk or neo folk oriented, and he's really excited about it. And so he's impressed. He was impressed by my musical abilities, and I would send him demos of stuff where I would just play, like, I would play the harp and mandolin and harmonium and all these different instruments, hammered dulcimer, and I would send it to him, and he would send me lyrics. My brother, Ian McKenzie, is a huge part of the process because when I record on my own, it gets very chaotic, and I just want to pick up different instruments, and I don't, I don't pay as much attention to the perfect placement of the microphone. It's all just about like my mind races too much. So Ian is really good at like he'll set things up for me, and he'll I'm going crazy with too many ideas, he kind of says like, no, like let's focus on minimalizing this a little bit. So my brother records, and he'll play synths, and he'll do samples and sound effects and treatments and things like that. And he's a really brilliant musician himself. Ian's going to be having a new album come out pretty soon too. But so my brother and I would build soundscapes around Thomas's lyrics, and my brother would do the recording. I would play instruments. I played a lot of instruments. I played tabla drums on a lot of them. I also used an Irish frame drum for a lot of songs, and an African jug drum. I played a lot of acoustic and electric guitars. Electric guitars had a lot of pedals, very shoegazy kind of guitar stuff over it. Most of the tracks were created with a drone that was made from an instrument that I have called a shruti box, which you basically it's an Indian instrument, and you put whatever note that you want. It has a scale. You put whatever note you want in a notch, and it pumps one note in a drone. So a lot of these songs were built off of drones made from a shruti box, and then I would put guitar over it, mandolin, bass. I would do harp, Gaelic harp. I would do dulcimer. I have an instrument that's called a saz or a baglama that I play over a lot of it. I have a bowed instrument called a bowed psaltery. It's an Appalachian instrument that I play over a lot of it. So just a bunch of instruments, a lot of harmonium, and it comes out sounding very mystical. I feel like it's a very mystical sounding album. And Andrew Yegazarian from my other band, The Western Lands, he plays a drum set on one track. And and then Thomas Carlson sent me some clips of him singing like kind of this kind of ritual Swedish sort of Nordic kind of like singing that he does, and I utilized some of that on it as well. It's been a lot of fun. It's taken 3 years. Just because I think he's a very, very busy man. I mean, he does a lot, and he also raises a son himself, and very accomplished. He writes a lot. He does a lot of tours and stuff like that, where he speaks and does book readings and book signings. It's taken us about 3 years, and we're finally wrapping up with mixing and everything. So it's a big accomplishment, this album.
Here is one more track from Dark Planets of Dead Dreams, and it's called Presence of God.
Sitting, thinking, lighting a fire, gazing into the flame. I see the flame dancing, and I pray for a place where I can stay. Being down upon the back of my neck, That's when I get scared and always run. My body wants to run, but I wanna stay. Suddenly I hear the angel choir. Is this the magic moment I've been waiting for? I pray to God but feel like I'm a liar. I turn around and there deep in the distance I see nothing, no nothing there at all. Why am I so blind to the presence of God? Will I rise or will I only fall? Why does God appear when I'm not watching? Am I even sure that it was him? I feel his presence somewhere I can't place. I feel his presence somewhere deep within. When I pray to him, he doesn't seem to listen. But when I'm in need, the devil holds my hand. When I pray to him, he doesn't seem to listen. But when I'm in need, the devil holds my hand. 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 The devil holds my hand.
We're going to take a little break here. We'll be back with part 2 of the interview with Wyatt McKenzie very soon. This is Daddy T, aka Ye Old Desert Scrounger, care of Colonel Troutman Productions and care of the Lighting Monkey Corporation, signing off.